welcome in everybody, wherever you are and however you may be listening. You just saw the old intro, so hey, there we go. It's kicking off just the way I planned. How's it going, man?
I think we're kind of having one of those oh crap kind of mornings. We're gonna get caught up there, right?
That's where that's where maybe it's a third cup of coffee today. Like
maybe so.
What's happening, Whit? Oh man. So how you been? What's new?
I almost had a heart attack this weekend. Yeah. So I survived. This is why you try not to get too emotionally invested in sports.
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, they were actively trying to lose that game at the end.
Yes. So, yeah.
Although, I mean, if anybody didn't see that game, all they need to tune in for is the last 4 minutes, because the last 4 minutes of that game was electric.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. Like, you couldn't have asked for bigger plays, just back to back. I mean, it's great.
Yep.
Also, because I didn't have a horse in the race,
yes,
so it made it
probably much better.
No question. Because if I was a fan of either team, I'd have just been like, man.
Yes.
We pretend to play defense.
Yeah. Those are the ones, man. Like, I remember watching, like, the Texas USC. I always go back to that. The Texas USC championship game, Vince Young. That game was amazing. But I can't imagine, had I been rooting for either team, what I would have really felt like, you know? So it's like, yeah I get it. I
mean, I kind of felt that way Monday night with the Hawks and the Lions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a fun one.
There was 900 yards of offense in that game. Yeah. And so I wasn't going to go here, but, you know, we're here, so why not? The Seahawks, fan groups, I mean, I'm sure every fan base is very similar, but it is the most ridiculous. Like, some of the posts in there, they must be trolling for engagement or something, because one of the people in there, they're like, oh, it's time to make a change for Geno. The dude threw for 400 yards.
Right.
Like, I mean, what more do you want this guy to do?
I definitely missed something then, because what about that game were they saying that he did something wrong?
Nothing. Like, I mean, you know, he only throws for one touchdown, but that's because they gave, you know, Kenneth Walker the ball down at the goal line. That doesn't make his drive any less important. Right. And the thing that really cracks me up is, you know, they're saying stuff like this, and you're like, okay, well, I mean, he leads the league in passing yards. So, I mean, that doesn't seem bad. He has 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and you're saying he's a bum and should go. Patrick Mahomes, that you think is like magic.
Oh, don't go there.
Has like 900 yards, so a couple hundred yards behind Geno, and 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So, I mean, like, it's not like, what am I missing here?
I gotta go.
I'm not even like a huge Geno guy, but I can respect the fact that he plays well. He plays smart. Like, I mean, and I certainly don't think, you know, Sam is the answer behind him. I didn't think Drew Lock was either. I mean, do these guys watch football?
No. Well, and so this is what I was wanting to look up too. So Kenneth Walker, 1-yard touchdown run. Kenneth Walker, 1-yard touchdown run. Kenneth Walker, 21 yards. He's not like, and that's not offense to Walker, but that tells you, hey, the offense got you all the way down to the 1, and this guy punched it in. Like, he only had 80 yards on the night with 3 touchdowns. Okay, so he wasn't like cranking off long runs. The offense was getting down there somewhere. And the stuff that you're missing in some of these yards, when you say he had 395, you don't give you the pass interference yards, the ones where, hey, I threw it to my guy and someone tackled him and they didn't get it. So, like, there were hidden yards in these games too as well, which means, hey, he put the ball in the right place. Somebody tackled him. You don't get that. You know, it's like, and I watched that game. A lot of that happened. So, you know, my boy Terry and Arnold, we're gonna have to talk to you for a minute. You know, get you settled down a little bit there. So,
I mean, when you got commentators saying they need to put gloves or like put mittens on you, it's blatant at that point. I mean, the one where he straight up tackled DK in the end zone was hilarious. Yeah. And that one didn't get flagged somehow. That's the one that really didn't make sense. Like, how did that one not get flagged?
I was half joking, half serious when I posted that last night on your show, where I was like, DK Metcalf is a bigger receiver. And they kind of ref him sometimes like they ref Shaq back in the day. Like, well, we can't call it. Now, that doesn't count for that one. A tackle is a tackle. You still got to call it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get more physical with him than they would on a smaller receiver.
Sure. Yeah, well, and they did the same thing for guys like Megatron too, right? Like they're just monster humans. I get it. You let some of them go because you have to be more physical just because they're so much bigger than everybody else. That being said, you just haul off and tackle somebody. I feel like that's pass interference.
You said maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like it's pass interference.
I feel like if we're just going letter of the law here, you impeded their ability to get to the ball.
Right. Which, by the way, I have someone who I watch football with, and they don't understand all the rules. So anytime a pass interference comes up, they're like, "What? Why is that pass interference?" I was like, I mean, you hit him, but you can't touch him before the ball gets there. I said, if they could do that, they would tackle him at the line every time. And there would be no plays. Like, that would just be the end of the whole thing. They would tackle every receiver, and we'd just be trying to run the ball 1,000 times. And whoever got lucky enough to break something off, that would be it. It was like, fine.
You would just have 9 linemen.
Yeah.
And Raj, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that was a horrendous performance. I did feel bad for you. And there was opportunity. I think that was the worst part, is it's not like you guys just, got beat down because it was the better team. It was the Titans. And they also look like they actively try to lose games. So, I mean,
their best thing was getting their starting quarterback pulled. So I don't want to say hurt because I don't like anybody to get hurt, but now I've listened to both teams' podcasts. I don't know if we were going there, but I'll make it quick. The Titans guy has never wanted Levis pulled because he's like, you need a full season of him to see what he gets. He's like, Mason Rudolph might win you a couple more games, but he's not winning you playoff games, so there's no real point to it. He's like, so play Levis. If Levis continues to suck, at least then you'll have a better draft pick. You can get his replacement. We can move on. Yep. And if he improves, then you're good. So he's like, continue to play him, right? The Dolphins guy is mad at the coach because he's like, what are we doing? First off, and something you and I talked about, having no backup plan after Tua. It's like, but the play calling after Tua's gone, he's like, we're not trying to stretch the field. And he's like, we got Hill and Waddle, and we're doing all this side-to-side stuff and not trying to, he's like, we took like 2 downfield shots and that kind of thing. He's like, he is mad at the play calling. He's like, you still have so much talent on this offense to get nothing done. It's ridiculous. So. Yeah,
that's the thing I didn't really get. I mean, you have you bring in Huntley, right? And Huntley can throw the ball. So I'm not really sure why you weren't trying to throw anything downfield. I think they only had like 2 targets downfield. Something like that.
Yeah. I saw when Tyreek was wide open and he overthrew him, and I was like, okay, that's not good. But
yeah, I mean, you overthrow him, but you're also able to get one attempt, right, on a team that you've been there for 10 days. So I mean, give this guy a shot to move the ball around, especially since what else do you got? Right. I mean, you're getting beat down by Mason Rudolph. Like, let this guy try and do something.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's amazing by any means. I think he was better than Skyler or Boyle.
Definitely.
But, I mean, at the same time, you can't just like hobble his ability to play the position. I mean, if you're treating him like he's Justin Fields and you're giving him nothing but like 10-yard outs and like a slant, and you're going to lose. Yeah. Like, if you can't use the rest of the field, your safeties don't have to acknowledge that the rest of the field exists. So they can come up. All of a sudden, it's real tight windows if everybody's down low. So it just, it doesn't make any sense. That being said, their coach isn't like on the hot seat or anything. I mean, at this point, you're on your 4th quarterback. So nobody's going to look at that situation and be like, you should be killing it. You're like, you're on your 4th quarterback.
You probably got a built-in excuse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's week 4. I mean, you're averaging a quarterback a week. Like, that's not great.
Yeah. I don't get why one of the plays is just getting the shot to take 3 steps and then just throw it up down the left side and as far as you can and just tell Tariq just, hey, either you get it or nobody gets it. Like at least once a quarter, like that would have been more than what they did. So, yeah, but you're right. I mean, he's not on the hot seat, but it's abysmal. And I understand you paid a lot of money, but given his history, you had to have something in the works, behind him. So I don't know. The backup quarterback situation in the NFL doesn't seem that great at times, though. Anyway, it's like we're barely getting, I guess, 32 starters. So I guess there's not a whole lot of great backups, but it looks sad.
You also run into the fact that if you are paying your starter,
true that
you don't have the money to pay your backup.
True.
Right. I mean, because when you think of the better tandems, right, like Wentz and Foles, Nick was making more than Carson.
Right.
Right. Because he's on a rookie contract. So they were able to pay their backup, which is why they had a competent backup. As soon as they had to pay the guy, they didn't have one anymore.
Right.
And then Doug Peterson gets fired. So now might as well take a peek at the Jags.
Yeah.
Sorry, Trav. What do they do well? Like, what do you see that they do well? I mean, because from what I'm hearing, there's arguments between the coaches and Lawrence. Like, he's just kind of doing what he wants to do out there. And then when they do dictate what he does and it doesn't work, they're fighting on the sideline. And like, this sounds like it's a great situation.
Right.
How's it going? Yeah.
That, I mean, I guess what they do good right now seems like compete for 3 quarters every other game is about where we're at. They gave the Dolphins fits for half a game. They gave up against the Bills. They decided to lose against the Texans. I mean, there is nothing there, and the Lawrence thing is interesting because, we had that discussion in the offseason, and I think Travis weighed in on it. And I was like, what else? Tua, Love, Lawrence, they all have something to prove by getting these huge contracts and, hardly any playoff wins. And he excluded Trevor Lawrence from there. He's like, no, we're fine. We don't have, there's no worry for him. And I remember going, that can't possibly be. You can't pay a guy $50 million and say there's no pressure this year. And now, you're winless. And it's like your own guys are saying, like, look, we understand the line isn't great at times, but you also missed 2 touchdown passes in the last game. So whoever else you're blaming, they schemed something got open. Either one of those wins you the game, but those are the stuff that you expect your quarterback to make, period. Yeah. And then if I pay you $50 million, I want you to hit both of them, So
yeah, you got to make everything. You got to go out there and Jared Goff it and be perfect.
Yes. Shout out to the ref who said, what? Incomplete? No, flag. Play didn't happen.
That's right. He's like, we are making history tonight.
Yes, one way or another. Did you know Jared Goff's last 4 incompletions, there's been a flag? Yeah, one of them after a conference.
It's funny because there was so many flags in that, and What are they teaching that defense for Detroit? Because, I mean, there was so much defensive holding and pass interference. I mean, if everybody's doing it, that has to be a coaching issue.
Right.
Like, it can't just be like everybody made it to the NFL. They forgot how to defend people. Right. Now, all things being equal, they needed to do that because with that, they still put up 400 yards passing. Imagine if they weren't holding on all those plays and those were completed passes. Like, this could have been a 500 or 600 yard passing attack, which is insane to me.
Yeah. I think that it's, their secondary wasn't great. So didn't they lose? And I know they got Terry Arnold, but they won their 2nd round pick, also a corner. So a lot of their secondary, and Branch has only been there, like a year. A lot of their secondary is very, very young. And I think there is a huge adjustment that we all don't see yet. High school to college, huge jump. College to NFL, it's like when you play, and you know, I think the SEC is the best conference, so I'm going to tout a little bit. Even in the SEC,
Sure.
it's like every other game, maybe you see an NFL receiver. And now in the NFL, you know, even the second guy is like one of the best, you know, from college or whatever. So I think adjusting to that speed on every single down, it's a huge, huge adjustment. And when your secondary is all like 1 and 2 years old, you know, young, I think it's like, okay, my technique has to adjust a little bit more. So yeah, I'm probably holding a little bit more. So that's my harebrained theory about it. I think give them some time, they'll adjust a little bit more. But I think now it's kind of like, let me do whatever. And then also, you know, you come from college. Hey, if I'm holding or pass interference, you don't get the ball right here. You get it way back there. So, you know, you're probably still used to, oh, crap, you get it here now? Yeah, you get it right there now. Sorry.
No, I always make that comparison, too, in the way that, you know, when you're in college, even the best team, you're going to have 4 or 5 NFL caliber guys, like, and that's a national championship team, right? You come to the NFL, that 53rd man was an All-American somewhere.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, you're talking about the depth being some of the best players on any team around college football. So, I mean, yeah, of course, like everybody's fast. That's why they always talk about rookies. You know, their next couple years, they're like, oh yeah, the game slowed down. It's like, well, yeah, because you're just trying to catch up that first year. You know, sometimes even the first 2. So, yeah, no, I mean, I get it, but if you're doing it with the frequency that they are,
something's up. Yeah.
Like just do some blanket coverage with the safeties, like help those corners out that clearly are holding, because then maybe they won't, right? Because they're like, okay, I got help over the top. I don't have to, you know, I don't have to worry about, you know, DK burning me, or the fact that Lockett runs super clean routes and I can't keep up. Like, give those guys some help, because I mean, yeah, maybe it doesn't go down as a completion, but you still get the ball there. So that's not any different.
It's not. All it does is affect the yardage of those people, you know. But otherwise, well, it's the same. I mean,
even if it's before the ball, you know, if you're holding, okay, it's 5 yards, but it's an automatic first down, so it keeps moving the chains. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. The Lions definitely have something to work out on that front. On Seattle's side, like, you knew that it was going to be a rough game, because they had 3 linebackers out, 2 defensive linemen. They lose their main safety during the game. I mean, you knew everything up the middle was going to be open, because when everybody's healthy, they struggle stopping people up the middle. You take out 6 of your starters, that's going to be a rough night.
But apparently, to your guy, Geno Smith needs to go play defense then, right? Was that the problem? He wasn't playing middle linebacker?
Yeah. I mean, he's why they got 42 points.
Right.
For sure. Had nothing to do with a DK fumble or, you know, in the red zone. Nothing like that. Like, that is
I forgot about the DK fumble, yeah. And you're also playing a team that kind of dedicates to the run. Like, we think about Detroit and scoring a lot of points, but they've got to want to punch it back. They actually use a first-round pick on a back that actually worked out for them, you know. So they are a team that's like, hey, we will come out and run the ball consistently first to set up everything. So it's not like you can try to just shut down one part of their game. So no, I get it. Because they got speed.
And they're talking about, you know, Goff being perfect. Well, yeah. To your point, because they run the ball so effectively, he only dropped back 18 times.
Yeah.
So it can't even be a record, because that record requires you to throw the ball 20 times. He didn't even drop back that many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, it was a matchup issue with everybody healthy.
Right.
Because the Seahawks struggled to stop the run anyway. We watched the Patriots run through them all night, right? So you're going to go to a better offensive line, a better team, and then you're going to have 6 starters miss. I mean, that's not a recipe for success. It did tell you a lot about the resiliency of the team, though, because there was no quit in that team. Like, down to the last second, they were going. And so even in a loss, you can look at that and be like, okay, that's encouraging. So I do like that.
Yeah. And there's an opportunity from right now, especially with San Francisco maybe not being the juggernaut that we thought, nobody really knowing when the Madden curse will stop affecting CMAC. The rest of the division is very, very beatable. So there's a good opportunity for them this year.
So
I don't think you have a choice here, but Tyler Huntley.
It's definitely Huntley. I mean, Skylar Thompson clearly not the answer, right?
Yes. It hasn't been though for a while, you know.
Oh, for sure. And then Boyle, like we all had to look him up. So
he sounds like a chef. Like I don't even know why you guys are.
Right.
He sounds like the guy who's on the side holding the clipboard. Helmet has been lost for years, and they're like, "Tim, you're getting in." He's like, "In what?"
You're in. Wait, give me a helmet. Yeah, no, that's about right. I mean, and besides, Raj, you should be excited about Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley being
my favorite Pro Bowler ever.
Sorry, I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
So many people dropped out at quarterback for the Pro Bowl. They let the second stringer from Baltimore
with 6 starts.
Yeah.
Like, how bad are stats when a dude with 6 starts is your guy? Yeah. Pretty wild.
Your good thing, Raj, is New England is not a juggernaut on offense, so you guys will be in the game for most of the game. Take some, bro. Dang, Raj. I mean, but how much of that last game was on him, and how much of it was the play call, Raj? It's like you guys decided left, right, you know. And you can see Tyreek was like, am I going to get one throw every half? Is that what we're down to now? You guys just have too much going on.
And you can't get away from it because he overthrew him once.
Right.
Like, you can't be like, well, the rest of the last 45 minutes of this game,
dang, Raj,
we're just not going to go that route. I mean, yeah, but you gotta. Well,
and to my point, you guys were in it for most of the game because they're not a juggernaut on offense. So that's what I'm saying. You got at least a chance for 3 quarters against New England. Now, if they busted out on you in the 4th quarter, sorry, but Tennessee was. I mean, through the 3 quarters, you guys were right there, but you got to score at some point. And I always have this thing like I think it's easier for backups to work with. Like I always think of what DeAndre Hopkins went through, going through so many quarterbacks, and he still put up good numbers. But I was like, yeah, because Hop's not necessarily a speed guy; he's more of a possession guy. I feel like for these backups, these speed guys, it's harder for them to get used to it because they take their drop, they look like he's open, and either I'm throwing it really far or I'm throwing it underthrown. I think that's one of the things too was really good at was the timing of getting up with these, you know, with a team that's nothing but speed. So, Raj, Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back soon, though. So, hey, there's hope.
That's right. You can have a 3rd decoy for, you know, an incomplete pass. Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I think you guys could have beat Tennessee if you just gave Huntley a chance.
Yeah.
It really felt like he was just handcuffed the whole night. I didn't watch it live. I had to go back and watch it. But, I mean, the play calling just didn't seem – it didn't seem to help him out. I mean, at the end of the day, you watched what he was able to do when he was with the Ravens. Now, obviously, he's coming in here short notice, doesn't know the playbook. Like, I get all of that. But at the same time, you can't just eliminate throws longer than 15 yards. Like that doesn't make any sense because then the defense gets to come up, and similar to the Patriots, they do have a decent defense. Their pass rush is average, but the rest of their defense for Tennessee is actually good. So, I mean, you needed to be able to get those guys out in space a little bit more because if you let everybody break down on you, I mean, that's just going to be a long night against one of the better defenses in the league.
Yep.
So, speaking of receivers, Davante Adams is on the trade block. And, you know, there is only about, 28 teams that could use him.
This started coming up. So
I could see the Jets. I could see the Jets making a play for him.
Yeah, I could too. Pair him with Garrett Wilson. That wouldn't be bad. Their offense does not look good so far. So proving they're maybe not just a quarterback, but if you have him, Wilson, and Breece Hall coming out the backfield, I mean, that's great. So am I surprised? I'm surprised it took this long. I think once they decided they weren't getting a quarterback, they should have traded Adams then. Like, I think that should have been much, much earlier. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think that was him requesting, right? Like that was the
No, I think at the very end he requested. I think the way the news came out, he was on the trading block, and then it came out later he's officially requested. So it's kind of like I don't know which one came first. I know the news came to me second that he has requested one, but I heard about him being on the trade block first, if that makes sense. So
yeah, well, and that's what I was thinking because it sounded like the team was kind of fishing, right? Because they're like, okay, we got to restock this team. Let's move some assets, and then that seemed like where maybe Adams, agent, the rest of his team were like, yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about it, then let's do it. Right. It's kind of the way that it came across to me, but I could absolutely see the Jets taking a swing at him. The Vikings potentially. Imagine pairing him with Jefferson.
Yeah, but Addison is doing pretty well, so I wouldn't think if they would had and Hawkinson. So I would. No, I would.
So if you had Hawkinson and Addison as your slot, and then you have Jefferson and Devontae on the edges.
Yeah, you're never not scoring. Like any drive that ends in a punt or a field goal, you're firing everybody. So you know what surprised me the most?
Pass rush.
Yes.
Your pass rush better be amazing.
Yes. You better get home in 2 seconds. 2? Yeah, 2, maybe 1. Like I don't care. The one that I saw that popped up first, because I think I even didn't clear it because I got to talk about this one, was the Browns are inquiring about Davante Adams.
Who's going to throw him the ball?
That was my whole thing. I was like, unless you're changing your quarterback situation. So first off, Amari Cooper's not doing bad for them. Njoku's not doing bad. Yeah. Judy has actually had a decent season as a second receiver under them. The receivers are not the problem. Okay. Cooper's had a couple drops, which I'm disappointed in because that's not usually, he's usually much better than that. But other than that, Deshaun Watson is your problem.
I mean,
giving more trade assets that you probably don't have to get a receiver that you don't need just seems weird. What are you saying?
Well, I mean, do you really fault him for the drops when you get the ball so infrequently? You're surprised. You're like, oh man, I'm playing football still. Thought I was just running track.
Yeah. I mean, what are you doing as an organization? These are not the answers. Let me give out more for somebody else who also be frustrated he doesn't get the ball. So no, you don't fix the quarterback situation. Doesn't matter who you got out there.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, and that may work itself out. That was actually one of the things I was going to touch on is, end of last week was when the most recent accusers turned in their video evidence to the league. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. Obviously there's going to be a investigation, all of that. But, if there's anything we do know about the NFL is when the video evidence is bad enough.
Oh yeah, true.
It always makes me think of the Ray Rice situation, right? Yes. Like they're like, oh yeah, domestic violence, whatever. And we know that the NFL doesn't care about it. But then the video comes out and they're like, I mean, yeah, we kind of have to do something now, right? Because you had some pro style boxing in an elevator, like, we gotta take some action.
We care all of a sudden, yes.
Exactly. So, only because at that point it hurts the brand, and that's really what they care about, right? So it that makes you wonder in this scenario if that video will be along those lines. Now, obviously, there's no battery happening, but if it is sexual assault, then that could be enough, depending on what that video looks like. And then realistically, that would actually help the Browns out a ton, because that would be a voidable element to the contract.
Right.
Because the way that their contract was set up was, all of the things that happened prior to him coming that they knew about were included. Right. But any new ones would now fall into that detrimental to the league thing.
Right.
And so then the rest of his contract would be voidable. And since it was such a terrible contract, especially based on production, I mean, that actually wouldn't be terrible for the Browns, especially since the rest of their roster is ready to win.
Yeah. And it's surprising, like they have low-key put together one of the more talented rosters. You know, like I said, I mentioned the receivers, no matter what you think of them, there's talent on the offensive side. You know, if it were not for an injury to Chubb, they'd have maybe one of the best running back rooms. And then the defense is solid, you know, so if not one of the tops. So the rest of the roster sitting over looking at Deshaun like, so what's up, man? What we good? We not good? What's happening? And Deshaun's like, yeah, you know. You know, guys, I'm thinking maybe I'll throw for 100, 120 yards today. See what happens. Like, that's what you're getting every game from him. So
230 mil for something a backup quarterback could get.
Yes. Yes. The guy got off the couch last year and got you to the playoffs. So you don't even need like a great guy. Yeah. You need a Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it's not even like Flacco played awesome. He was okay.
Yep.
And, you know, his touchdown to interception was actually kind of terrible. But, hey, it was good enough to win with the roster they have. So, I mean, this guy can't figure out how to get the ball down the field is absolutely crazy to me. But at the same time, it's the Browns, and it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you said it, though, a while back. You can't not play football for as long as he did and then just come right back into where you were, you know? So,
yeah.
And there's a lot of injuries on the side.
Basically 3 years.
Yeah. Yep. Miami could use a Cooper Rush. Yeah. That's why I'm surprised that Skylar Thompson is not much any better. You know, like Cooper Rush has really benefited by being around the Cowboys for a long time, you know, and being in that system. And there's just something about playing with the same players and having those reps behind them and knowing a system that you just jump right in. Even when they change offensive coordinators, you're used to the personnel. I'm like, I'd figure Skylar Thompson at some point would be like, look, step, throw it up. Tyreek should be over there. You know, like just something would be better than what you're getting.
I think it's because he wasn't actually there with the clipboard. Like his clipboard had like Mad Libs.
Is that what it was?
He's doing like Sudoku and they're like, you got to play. And he's like, what?
He's in the huddle. How you guys doing? Hi, my name's Scott. How you guys doing? Yeah. Tyreek? Yeah. Hi, how you doing? Like, this is the first time you've met everyone on the yes.
Yeah, no, it was pretty rough. That being said, based on what Miami wants to do, I'm surprised they didn't go get Trey Lance. Just so he could get knocked out the next week.
Yeah. Poor Trey Lance.
No, the fact that they didn't come up with a capable backup for a guy that has been injury prone through his whole career, I just really can't wrap my head around because there are solid backups in the league. I mean, certainly better than Skylar or Tim Boyle, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that they didn't entertain some better options behind a guy that only had 1 year of, you know, healthy play.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But since we did touch on the Vikings, how about them being the most complete team in the league? How weird does that sound?
How about getting a redemption story on both sides of the ball? You know, Flores was thought of like just totally done or whatever. And then even when he's over there doing well, there another semi-scandal pops up with Tua, you know, but he's basically run out of Miami and suing the league or doing whatever, right? And now it's like, this guy's really good as a defensive coordinator, you know? Yeah. And I've said this before. Some people are just not great head coaches, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are really good at the parts of the, you know, the side of the ball that they specialize in, you know, and the overall part. But it's like we take that as a, hey, you'll never be a head coach. It's not an insult, you know, in these cases. Some guys are good on that.
If you could string together a 30-year NFL career as a coach, like, I'm not mad at that. Are you a head coach? Yeah, maybe not. But you know what? They get fired all the time anyway.
Yes. Yes. But his defense is feisty. And then your guy, Sam Darnold, on the other side, it's amazing what having good receivers will do for your confidence. Right? Yeah. And let's be honest, Justin Jefferson can make any quarterback look good. So that always helps to have a guy like that out there. But
I don't know if Skylar could have hit him.
Kind of like who? Justin who? Like, oh my God, just go back to the bench. But I mean, that's it, man. He's just, you can just tell there's more confidence. I mean, what was that 97-yard bomb or whatever they threw? I mean, you just don't think of Darnold in the passives doing that now. I think he's just kind of, you know what, I got this. You know, it's a good team. We're playing well. I got this. So
yeah, well,
I love it.
It's his best team, right? Like, I mean, he's drafted by the Jets, which are terrible. He goes to the Panthers, which were terrible. He had a couple of good outs as the backup with San Fran. And so, yeah, you know, this is his best shot to do something. And you actually kind of forgot that he had the cannon of an arm that he does, because he never had anybody to throw the ball to.
Right.
He certainly didn't have anybody that could create enough separation to actually try to get it down the field.
Right.
So it's been cool to watch. But you know, that defense really came together. Obviously they have weapons, and he has an offensive line that doesn't make him run for his life all the time. So
right.
It's crazy to think that this may be the most balanced team in the league. Yeah. And that's just not something you're used to saying after the Vikings headline pops.
Right.
You're not like,
I mean,
Vikings team.
Yeah. Well, that's a team I picked to go last in the division. And now it's like, you know, I thought they'd be feisty for sure, but I never thought they'd be at this level that they're at right now. So, man, hats off to them, though.
No, I thought they were going to be a scrappy team, right? That would like surprise some people. But I mean, I guess they are. But it just way better than I would have thought. Like, I thought, and Darnold honestly is way better than I would have thought. Like, I thought he was going to have a bounce back year, right? Kind of salvage his career, certainly make the case for why he should still be in it. But I obviously didn't see what they're doing,
right?
You know, but and then the Ravens finally figure out how to use the running game. I don't know why there was confusion the first 2 weeks with a guy like Derrick Henry. Right. But, you know, the last 2 weeks, they hand it to him a lot. And guess what? Oh, you win games. It's crazy. So nobody can tackle the guy because he's huge.
There's a shocker.
You know, so he tears up the Bills for 199 yards. And he had like a trio of touchdowns, I think. Yeah. So, I mean, just a monster night. And it almost feels like next week they're going to hand it to him 10 times.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't it seem like it has been slow rolling it with him? And it's like you said, they didn't learn anything from the Kansas City game in the playoffs. He didn't get that many carries in the first one. And then it's like he had to bust out a 87-yard or whatever to start the game for them to go, oh, okay, we'll give it to him more. Like, he had to earn that in the first part of this game. I don't understand the play calling after it. Jerry said he was broke, Raj, which is that's a whole nother. We'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure, but that's
well, we definitely will, since that's the easy segue. But I mean, it was funny because they did tear up Dallas the week before too, right? Like
true. Yeah.
So, but it was just, I don't understand the play calling when you are the best running team.
Yes.
Why are you putting Lamar in harm's way?
Right.
Because a lot of these are like designed quarterback runs. You have a monster of a human in Derrick Henry that likes to run people over.
Yes.
Like, why are you trying to get your quarterback hurt? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And Derrick Henry's always been like a volume guy, you know, because they always use, his average yards per carry is not that great. Yeah, but in the fourth quarter, he's still good. And those guys that have been tackling him for 3 quarters all of a sudden don't want to tackle him in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, shout out to you guys. I wouldn't do it for the first quarter. That's where he wears you down. And I think they always just expect, like, I think too often teams run him the first 3 times. He gets tackled. And they're like, all right, we're abandoning it. No, your defense is going to keep the game close. That guy's your closer. You know, that's how we found out about Derrick Henry. Our OC didn't want to run the ball. He only wanted to pass the ball. Our coach quietly told him, you better start running. So he thought he was going to teach our team a lesson and run him all the time. And then all of a sudden, Derrick Henry won the Heisman. So That's how we found out about Derrick Henry. Like, oh, okay, yeah, he's good and he can handle all these carries too. So, no.
Well, I mean, what was crazy about that game is had he been able to get the one more yard, right? And they tried to. They tried to get him that 1 yard. They ran him.
I felt so bad.
Five different carries. They couldn't get him 1 yard. It was crazy. But he would have had the most 200-yard games in the league ever. Right. So if you have that guy that can tear off 200-yard games, why are you not handing this guy the ball more? Because, I mean, those first two games would have been wildly different had he touched the ball more. And he, like, to your point, is a volume guy. He gets better as the game goes on. The defense wears down. They get tired of tackling him. They start making business decisions. And he's too big of a guy to hit with a shoulder and hope he falls down. Like, he's not gunning. So it's just absolutely crazy that they haven't used him well. And it just, based on what we've watched, I'm just waiting for the Ravens to be like, okay, and we're not going to use him again this week. You're just like, you had 2 games in a row that you just killed people on the ground. And then you're going to end up with that random Ravens game where they're like, we're going to see if Lamar can run for 200 yards and throw for another 200. It's like, just use the talent on your team.
Yes. I don't get it at all. And it's almost just like, and I think too many of these offensive quarters outsmart themselves. All right, we've got Derrick Henry, and they think that we're going to run Derrick Henry a lot. So we're going to fool them by not running him a lot, and we're going to do this instead. Wait, what? But has that worked out? No, it doesn't work out. But this time, it'll work out. So, it didn't work out against Kansas City twice. Failed us against the Raiders. But you know what? No one's expecting it now because Derrick Henry's been good the last 2 games.
I'm a big fan of, if you have something that's working, make them stop it. If they can, cool. Adjust your approach. But if they can't, great. You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fan of any of that. Before we switch over to the Cowboys, because we do have that in our future. Show brought to you in part by True Fusion Gym. If you use the QR code on the screen, get a free 5-day pass to any of the 3 locations, whether it's Ballard, Bellevue, or University Village. Pilates, boot camp, yoga, hot bar. Find your edge at True Fusion Gym. And, of course, if you are into sports betting, you can bet right alongside us here at Football Talk. Use the QR code on the screen. Get up to 125% of your initial deposit on Bet Us. There's also a 10% guarantee for your first few bets. Obviously, conditions apply. All right. So, that being said, speaking of conditions apply, the Cowboys exist. And we knew they were in a really bad spot cap-wise. So when he says that he didn't have the money, he's actually kind of not wrong. They were coming into the season, I want to say almost 20 million over the cap, right?
Yeah.
And they let people go. They restructured some guys. They still had Dak and CD to sign. They still have Michael Parsons to figure out. I mean, so they are in some very real cap problems. So when Jerry says, oh, we didn't have the money, he's not wrong. I mean, he could have done what the Rams did and just kick it all down the road, right? And they could have, been all in, right, that he kept talking about, or this. But it would have absolutely destroyed the team moving forward. And they're actually still looking at that, right? Because they have signed Dak and they have signed CD. So, I mean, like this team is going to get worse. Now, the team is worse than I thought they were going to be, right? Like I thought they were going to take a step back from last year.
Right.
But I didn't think they were just going to fall off the map, right?
Especially defensively,
Yeah, exactly. And you have Zimmer, who, throughout his career was a good defensive coach, right? Like that's how he got a head coaching job, was by being a DC and earning his way through. So you kind of figured that should work. It hasn't, obviously, but that just means that the fall off is going to be even worse than we were all thinking, because they're still going to lose a lot of people as they try and sign Parsons.
Right.
So it's either going to be, guys that aren't making much money or, rookies. And so, like we've watched with Detroit, if you got a lot of rookies on the defense, there's a lot of penalties that happen. So, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong that he didn't have the money. They could have done some creative financing, but it would have just absolutely crippled the team moving forward. And then how much do you want to do that when you know that you're changing coaching staffs at the end of the season?
Right. I get it, but it just looks bad, given what's going on. Thinking of Dallas, one of your biggest brands, running back being an issue, you know what I mean? And then you see all the big money. It wouldn't have taken much to get, he's 16 mil over 2 years, I guess. It just looks terrible. And then when he comes to town and beats up on you, it'd have been better if they just never been involved in that talk at all versus, oh, you ran that talk. You say, hey, we can't afford them. Nobody's ever going to think that. Then I understand, you're looking at the actual finances. You're like, hey, you're thinking logically, they don't have it. For us outsiders, we see Dallas, the biggest brand in the world. We're like, you got the money.
Sure.
We saw what you just gave to all these other guys. So the optics of it look bad. And it's, how fan bases are. We don't care about logic of stuff. We see the guy that we wanted making us look silly. We're upset. That's all we care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just looks terrible for Dallas.
No, well, and I mean, and when you look at it from other sports perspectives, they all have kind of fungible salary caps, right? It's a cap, but it only is. They're like, oh, I'll just pay some taxes, luxury taxes, and I'll just still pay people whatever I want.
Right.
Whereas the NFL is the cap is the cap.
Yeah.
Right. You can play around with it a little bit with signing bonuses and the length of the contract, and you can kind of move money into different years.
Right.
But the cap is the cap. You got this. It's a hard cap instead of baseball or basketball where they're like, yeah, it's the cap, but only kind of.
Right.
And so I like that Polar Knights over here is trying to call you out. There's not a million Bama fans.
I read that one 3 times. I was like, the one Alabama fan? Huh.
Right? I if it was a different school, but
yes.
Bama, they got a lot of national titles. They still have a lot of Fairweather fans that are on board. So, but yeah, no, it was, I don't know. I feel like they get some unfair scrutiny on that one. Now, some of that's because of Jerry,
right?
And him coming out and being like, "We're all in."
Yes,
that was probably the worst soundbite possible going into a season where you were so far over the cap that you were going to have to start to disassemble part of the team. That's probably not your "I'm all in" quote year.
Right, right. That's like what Drew would in the first Despicable Me. In terms of money, we have no money.
Exactly.
But you're still trying to tell everybody you're stealing the moon. So that's Jerry Jones right there to a T.
Exactly.
So I wonder if he regrets that soundbite. And that's, you hit the nail on the head there. That is the reason why everyone kind of got into a frenzy. He said it and then spent the whole summer not doing it. Without that soundbite, anything else you said would have been fine. Hey, we got some stuff to look at. We're going to try and manage a team. Everybody's expectations would have come down. But you kept a coach who should have been fired. You said we're all in, which AK translates, you got one shot to make this right. Super Bowl or bust. That's basically what we all translated your words into. And you're like, I'm not going to give you everything to succeed, though.
So should he have been fired, though? You're coming off of 3 12-5 seasons. Who are you going to get that duplicates that? Because it's not like the postseason woes are unique to him. It's been 30 years of that.
But you probably had one of your most talented teams right here at the end. And your own personal mandate was, and then I think this actually should have been 1, not 2. His personal mandate to him to start the season was, we need postseason success or we're going to have a change. Like he actually, not in those exact words, but he actually said to it, hey, we've got to produce something, you know? Because it's like, I get that. Okay, I mean, let's throw another pair. Like Lamar Jackson keeps winning MVPs and having no postseason success. Like, how long is that sustainable before people really, really get unhappy? Like, you know, is it, if he wins 2 more MVPs and wins 1 more playoff game, like, how are we going to look back at his career? You know?
Well, so that's the thing that's funny is that's sort of an unfair. I mean, you're not wrong, like, and they absolutely will, especially after the fact. Right. But when you look at, especially take a look at last year,
right,
where you're the best running team, you have 6 called plays to a running back.
Right.
I mean, you got away from everything you did well.
Right.
So is that Lamar's fault? I mean, not really, right?
Right.
You deliberately became one-dimensional.
Right. Especially in the second half when you held them scoreless. Like, I don't understand. You hold another team scoreless for a whole half. That means you can run anything in your offensive play. It's not like they ran away with the game, you know? It's not like it was out of touch. Yeah, you know, you could start the whole third quarter. You could have run the ball the whole third quarter. And then if it didn't produce, okay, go back to something else the fourth quarter. But give it a shot.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean to take a shot at Lamar. I'm just the way that we look at stuff, you know, you can't
you're
me
absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah. Because look on the flip side, and I'm glad he's not here because I don't want him to get mad at me. Eli Manning never had spectacular regular seasons. You know,
I think he had 1 good year.
Oh, thanks. think, yeah, but you know, but you see what I mean.
But I think he had like 1 good.
Yeah, but the people who are voting him in on, you know, in the Hall of Fame first ballot are going, hey man, he beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, right? So it's like your postseason success has to matter. Now, flip side of like, yeah, there's a lot of teams that would have taken Dallas Cowboys 12-5 3 years in a row, like easily. You know what I mean? But I think there's at some point where the expectations have to step up. And for them, with as much money, you're paying your quarterback and you're paying premium positions a lot of money. Postseason success has to matter. And that's the only reason why I think he should have been fired last year.
So I was surprised he wasn't, just based on some of the sound bites that came out. Right. Jerry being tired of Mike McCarthy and McCarthy being tired of Jerry micromanaging. And so, you know, all of those things come out. And for those to come out, their teams have to want that stuff out.
Right. Right.
And so in that scenario, it felt like that would have been a good time to make a change, not only because you were already having to change out your defensive coordinator, so you're already looking at coaching changes anyway, but there was a lot of coaches available this last year.
Yeah.
And, you know, for coming into a season where it's your last best shot, I mean, I think last year was actually their best shot at a ring, but this year, before they really start disassembling stuff, is their last best shot at it. And I don't think a lame duck, you know, coach in there makes sense. You know, and then of course you have Zimmer there as your defensive coordinator. You get a new head coach next year. Does that mean you're changing all of that yet again? Or are you elevating Zimmer? I don't know if that's really the answer. I mean, it's not like he was fantastic when he was, you know, headed up the Vikings. So, I mean, you know, it looks like this team is going to take a dive next year. Yeah. Now, I could be wrong, but like they're doing a lot of things that make this team look like they're not going to be very good next year.
Right, right. Well, and you mentioned another thing, like you already paid your 2 top guys. You add in some more money for Parsons, you start to lose a lot of talent around the edges, you know? Like they're paying these guys so much and they can't get a credible second wide receiver in there right now. So it's just going to get worse on the defensive side. And look at how the defense is now. Imagine losing some more talent off of there. You know, and I can't remember, did Diggs already get his money? So that's, you know, throwing Diggs into that. Parsons that's just, you're going to have some of the highest paid players or some, you know, top 5 at their positions and be a team that's slowly sliding into like, you know, 10-7 range, you know, 9-8 range.
Yeah.
Because you just, and then think about an injury to any one of those guys now. And without having the rest of the talent.
You're actually watching it. You're watching it right now because you're watching the Niners go through it.
Yeah.
And they got to pay Purdy next year.
Yep.
They're going to be in the exact same position. They're going to start losing talent. And, you're looking at it this year where they're like, okay, it's the last year of Purdy's, rookie deal. They've paid a lot of guys and a lot of guys are hurt and they're struggling to win games. So now if you start losing talent because you got to pay Purdy, and you have to pay Purdy, right? Like, he's played well enough. He's going to get paid. He's not going to reset the market probably, but he'll be top 5.
Yeah.
And, then what do? All of a sudden, these nice depth pieces that keep you in games start to fall away. Yeah. And, you're starting to see CMC get injured more often. Now the report is that he has Achilles tendonitis in both legs.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure you see him, in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, tendonitis is that's a tough thing to come through. And of course, Achilles, anytime we've seen that over the last few years, if it's an Achilles or, super tight calf muscle, that Achilles pops. Like, it's just, there's been more of those as of late. So, they're not going to want to get him out there because they paid the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we forgot with C-Mac's injury history because, it's kind of like the Tua situation. Obviously he played longer, so, I'm not going to go through his years, but his injury history was pretty extensive before last year being, relatively healthy on like his best team. But he's been banged up a lot. Plus he's a running back. I think sometimes because of how dynamic we forget at heart he's a running back. He gets hit, way more than every other player. You know what I mean? So yeah, the team there. We said it before. This is their last shot, and then everybody on the team decided to get hurt in the first couple weeks. So
absolutely.
And then Brandon Ayuk hurt his hands carrying all his money. So
that does get us to the top of the hour. A couple of notable things that happened during the week. Pete Rose passes away at 83. So I was going to get into that, but we're out of time in the way of, potentially do they finally get him into the Hall? And then, of course, Mutombo also passes away, sadly due to brain cancer. Kind of a bummer deal. I believe he was 59,
58,
something like that.
58.
So that's it's sad to see, some of these icons pass away. And he should have been inducted years ago. I think it'll be probably a couple of years still yet before he gets in, maybe even a different commissioner before he gets in. Yeah. That being said, let everybody know where they can find you there, Herb.
Herb Raj, on Twitter, you see that Raj_Herb. Also, if you search this on YouTube, Spotify, Herb and Raj podcast, you can find all our videos, everything.
All right. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. It does help us bring our content to you. If you're watching on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. Other than that, we will see you all next week.
Raj, Sam Darnold's going to win the MVP.